Welcome, guys.
Hello there.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's start with the most recent news. I know the mayor of Akron, Ohio, is really excited about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's like pushing for you guys to get voted in. To explain, you guys have been on the ballot, the final ballot, the last couple of years, right? And I did, in fact, vote for you. I took a picture of my ballot before I mailed it in, so you can confirm that. I'll send it over to you. But is this at all on your radar? Is this something you guys care about, Jerry and Mark? Do you care that Devo is getting recognition by this museum in Cleveland?
Sure. You know, there's something nice about that. You know, there's something nice about being recognized for what we've done. And, you know, we might not have been the most cliche rock and roll band there was, but I think what we brought to the mix was something maybe a little more thought out and had some maybe some deeper meaning to it.
Yeah, and the influence, the resonance lives on. I just have to insert that he gets to vote for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I worked for 8.5 months at Rolling Stone, got fired for panning Hootie and the Blowfish. I got to vote once, and then I've been blacklisted ever since. But I'd have voted for you. I'd have voted for Kraftwerk a lot earlier, too, right?
Well, you know, we keep getting threatened to get recognized. We'll see if we do. I mean, Jan Wenner's gone, and John Dykes is in, and so the new regime has to do with the birth of MTV, and certainly Devo supplied the fuel for that birth.
Absolutely. You guys anticipated a lot of things with the band you created. I don't know if people know your entire backstory, but it's amazing. You both were students at Kent State, correct?
Yeah.
In Ohio in the 70s, and you were there when the shootings occurred. The National Guard swooped in. There were student protests over the Vietnam War. I believe you both were part of that protest, right? You were out on the campus protesting when this violence occurred.
I wasn't there for the violence. Jerry was there the day of the violence. I was there 2 days before when there was a march on the recruiting center downtown, and I was part of that. And then my brother Bob was part of the one when the ROTC building got burnt down on campus. FBI agents came over to our house and scared my mom with photographs of him burning an American flag on the.
Well, you know that what that day was about, you guys, right? It was Nixon had expanded the war into Cambodia from Vietnam without an act of Congress. Back then, people were outraged at the corruption of the separation of powers in the three branches of government, and they were informed. So students were the most informed. And so I was a member of SDS. Myself and other anti-war factions organized that protest that day against what Nixon had done. That's what it was. But what it really was collusion between the right-wing governor, Rhodes, and the head of the university. It was an ambush, basically, to get the students all in one place and then arrest them by declaring martial law on campus. And that what led to the ambush with live ammunition, which none of us could have anticipated. And I just lucked out because I was closer to the guard than a lot of the kids that got shot. And I think the guard shot over our heads on purpose because they were the same age as us and they could see us. And so they probably didn't have it in them to just really kill an unarmed student straight on. So they shot past us, killed everybody in the parking lot behind us.
I've always thought a great underrated work of literary journalism, Greg, is that Mickner book about Kent State. Mm-hmm. And then he interviewed all these student journalists, and he had, it was one of the first great oral histories I recall. But a formative event for both of you in the fact that it made you skeptical of what the government was telling you, skeptical of government, period. Kind of the birth of this notion of devolution, right?
Yeah.
It's a bigger skepticism than just the government. It was about humans and what we were doing here on the planet.
You were art students, and you were in film and literature and music. All of this was swirling around the campus. And I know that you guys were both involved in music in some way before this, but was forming a band on your radar was something that you were thinking about at all prior to the Kent State killings?
I was trying to start a band, but not Devo. When I came to Kent, I learned about people like John Cade, and I learned about the Dadaists and things like Ballet Mécanique and the Futurists in Italy that were saying that modern orchestra does not contain the instruments capable of creating sounds to represent our current culture properly. And I kind of thought, yeah, I want to update that. I was looking at people like Sun Ra, and we were both Captain Beefheart fans, and I like the idea of like pounding a synthesizer with your fists and making explosions, rockets and things like that.
Yeah.
And Jared, well, he can tell you, but he was a bass player in a band, and he was playing blues, and so it was kind of this combination musically of two things that actually complemented each other really well. And then from a conceptual point of view, we were just both really disappointed with humans and what they were doing on this planet. You know, I'd read a book called The Population Bomb in 1969 that said humans are multiplying at such a fast rate that we'll have stripped the planet of all of the resources by the year 2050, and a virus will probably remove humans from the planet.
Funny book in retrospect. It's called The Beginning Was the End, How Man Came into Being Through Cannibalism, by what we found out to be an ex-Nazi philosopher, Oscar Kiss Mayarth. It basically redefined evolutionary theory into this theory about how brain-eating apes that became psychotic and lost their ESP function in their tails and hair became humans, and that their brains grew faster than their capacity of the cranium to contain them, and so they were psychotic and out of touch with nature and had to try to control nature because they couldn't live in harmony anymore with nature. And we loved that because it was a crackpot theory. But of course, it was 280 pages of quote proof. And we thought, you know what? This is better than the Bible and better than Darwin. At least it's the bridge between creationists and rosy-cheeked evolutionists that keep saying that there's progress and things are getting better. And we thought, no, there's a dark side to human that always seems to win. You know, there's a duality, the Jekyll and Hyde duality, and the bad part always wins out. That's what we thought. Stupidity winning out.
So we're looking around and we're realizing the word de-evolution is showing up other places, including in anti-evolution diatribes from the Christian. All those things gave us a reason to talk about humans as possibly the unnatural species on the planet.
Duty Now for the Future, 1979, comes with this press release from the desk of the general that says, you may not be aware of this, but we are in the middle of World War III. We must fight back. We must know what we want. Wow. That could have been written 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I was writing for the general back then. But we knew that World War III probably wouldn't be fought with, ICBMs that would annihilate the planet, that it was really going to be a war for the mind itself, for human consciousness, like how are you going to organize yourself? And that's what you see now. And it's going to be like WWF, like World Wrestling Federation, where you got NATO and the Western countries, and then you got China and Russia. And it will be this endless smackdown between the two ways to think about organizing human energy.
Yeah, it's a page out of 1984. It's whose reality is real.
Despite this very dark worldview that you formulated, I don't know, beautiful is the right word, but it was art. You were making art. You made stuff. It's almost like you're telling it's like we're depressed and the world is ending. And yet we're making this amazing stuff out of it. We're still creating in the midst of all that. So that seemed to be like a defiant protest in itself.
We weren't parasites and we weren't opportunists. We were contributing in a creative way by responding to what we saw and what bothered us. Either you become the weatherman and start going underground and, blowing up banks, or you become Devo.
Was there a kinship in those early days with what was happening in Cleveland? I've seen you guys talk at various points, but, with Rocket from the Tombs, and then we have Peru, of course, with Lochner and David Thomas. Was that kind of inspiring?
We were aware of them. They were aware of us. But I have to tell you that mostly it was the press creating this community. Community didn't really exist. It was really fragmented. And I remember that, Dave, we liked Peru. Right? Yeah. We liked them. But, Dave Thomas, was that his name? he had nothing to say but snarky, nasty things about Devo. It was that petty and kind of parochial, provincial.
You catch David on a bad day, he has nothing but snarky, nasty things to
But,
say.
I think a lot of it was also he was intimidated by the fact that we had so much content. That's my feeling, is that he was kind of taken aback by that. And he spun way out into the atmosphere,
Yeah.
I think the first songs that they did were their best stuff.
That's almost true of any band. Their first stuff is the best, and then it devolves.
But they kind of like exploded and turned into this like strange gas out in the air, and they became very strange and became less connected. And we kind of went the other way. We decided that the way for us to survive was through subversion, and so we thought our concepts and what we were about, our manifesto, was strong enough that we could go out to the West Coast and look for a record deal.
Was the whole package intact right from the get-go in terms of the image, the way you presented yourselves? Because you really were a multimedia creation before that became a thing.
Since we labored in obscurity in basements and garages in Akron for like almost 4 years, it actually worked to our advantage because, yes, when we came out, we were pretty much fully formed. We had the 10-minute film, we had the stage presentation, we had a body of work, we had the yellow suits, we had the movements and the manifesto, and it was like people didn't have a chance to pick us apart because it was definitely a solid, almost military drill team, and that really worked because it was overwhelming to people.
What was the audience response to what you were doing?
Polarizing, hated us, threatened us.
Right, there were people that would jump on stage and go, "You calling me a monkey?" And then there were also people that were going, "Okay, I saw this band last night. They put up a sheet in front of the stage. They played some movies they made of them playing songs. They took the sheet down, and then they played the songs. They didn't look at all like a band. They were wearing hazmat outfits or something, and they ripped them off, and then they had another outfit underneath, and you got to go see that, And so from the first show that we played in New York, all of a sudden it turned into everybody was on our guest list. There was, the Jack Nicholson's, the Dennis Hopper, Zappa's band, Bowie, Eno. Everybody wanted to be on our guest list. John Lennon was at our second show in New York.
You guys somehow, against all odds, became hip. I want to ask you a geeky question, Mark. You mentioned banging on the synthesizers. The initial wave of analog synths are so magical, and I still hear a lot of that kind of influence in your soundtrack work, even if you might be doing all digital now. Because, what was amazing about those early synthesizers was you turn a knob and you didn't know what you were going to get, right? They could surprise you.
You're right. But at the same time, they were much more user-friendly than later on with, once it got into algorithms and other things, it's just people started just giving up trying to make their own sounds after a certain point, and they just used the pre-programmed sounds that came with the synths.
It's easier to hit the button.
But the old, it's like I still use them, and you have to be careful because when you write it, you have to make sure that 3 weeks later when you're recording it, it's all in the same tuning.
That was the problem, right? You could have a happy accident and then never find that great sound.
Well, oh yeah, no two shows were ever alike.
To this day.
And then we couldn't repeat the demo sounds either. I mean, Mark would find some incredible sound on a move, and we'd base the song around the sound, like Smart Patrol, with the kind of rising, arpeggiated, sweep that had a certain period to it.
Even today, when we do those songs, I'm singing a song and I'm thinking in my head at the same time, okay, the next one I have to have all these sets. I have to turn the mini mode to all these different places. So it's still that same thing a little bit. Smart Patrol still sounds like a floppy pancake at the beginning sometimes. And then it's closer to it by the middle of the song. And sometimes it's just what you get when you use that gear.
Mick Jagger listens to your cover of Satisfaction and says, that's pretty cool. You go ahead and do that. Neil Young wants to jam with you guys. He's a huge fan before the rest of the world really even knows you. And in fact, I guess the earliest version of My, Hey, Hey, Rock and Roll's Here to Stay was done with you guys. What was that like? Having these heritage acts flocking to you and saying you're the coolest thing.
Well, it's gratifying that creative people that we like
And it was extreme because we went from maybe a few weeks before that being told, after we did our first set at a club in Ohio, being told, okay, you're done now. We go, oh, no, we got another set for you. And they go, no.
No, you're done.
Well, they paid us to quit, and then we went and took the money and got hamburgers and Cokes and laughed all night about it, thought we were really triumphant, because the people that hated us, we didn't like either. So it encouraged us to keep doing what we were doing. And it's like, if they hate us, let's keep doing this.
You didn't at all solicit this attention. These famous people came to you and said, we want to work with you, or we want to do these things with you. I mean, Neil Young just doesn't work with anybody. You know?
Right.
I watched that video again the other day, and it's still mind-blowing. It's just like, oh my God, they got away with this. I mean, a Neil Young album like Trance that everybody didn't understand is like, okay, he was doing this 4 years before with Devo. What was that experience like with Neil? Was that track just sort of presented to you?
It was part of this ongoing Human Highway project. It was the movie that kept morphing, and Boogie Boy was featured.
Right. I think he showed us the song. I could be wrong. I might have gotten it the day before, but I think like lyrics we just saw the day of the show or something. It was about Johnny Rotten. Sex Pistols had just broken up like a day or two before that, and somehow they came over to this house where most of Devo was staying that night. So we had T-shirts from them and different things that we ended up wearing in Neil's movie.
It's pretty incredible. The copyright laws, I guess, were that you actually had to get the approval of Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones to cover Satisfaction on your debut album.
Yeah, intellectual property was taken seriously back then.
We almost didn't get permission to use Secret Agent Man. Because all we did is we wrote a whole new song, and then at the end of the chorus, we went, Secret Agent Man, take away my name. That's the only thing we used out of his song. And the rest of it was all a brand new song that he didn't like it. And luckily, somebody in Japan accidentally signed off permission for us to do the cover. And
how difficult was it to get the Stones to sign?
They were easy. We went to New York. Jerry and I went to New York and went to Peter Rudge's office. Mick came in and we played him the song, and he started dancing.
Danced around like Mick Jagger saying, I like it.
How much did Eno add to the debut album?
A lot.
He was really a patron saint in a way. You know, it's like if we didn't have money from anywhere else, he was willing to put up his own money to take us to Germany, to this electronic studio that was in a place called Neunkirchen.
Where we find ourselves working with Connie Plank, who turns out to be famous.
Yeah, a god. Yes.
Yeah. The whole producer behind the krautrock movement, right?
Fine documentary.
Yeah, the documentary is good.
Yeah, really good.
Eno and Bowie, they recorded extra tracks. Maybe someday Eno would say, hey, let me mix it how I was going to mix it, because we kept like pulling his things back. But there are a number of synthesizer, guitar, and vocal tracks. We kept some of them in the, like Uncontrollable Urge has Eno and Bowie singing backups along with Bob and Jerry. Some of the other songs, there's things like, put a synth sound that we used in Too Much Paranoia's Something in Giacomo. There were other things too, so
You're a cruel man, Mark, because you know what hearing that is going to do to the superfans. They're pulling out their hair right now. How do I get this? How can I live without this? You guys have been incredibly frank about the experience of recording for a major label. One of my all-time favorite quotes about the industry, Mark, you said, we knew we were stepping into a sewer. We just didn't know how bad it stunk.
Well, we were warned about what it was going to be like to sign a record deal, but we really felt like what we were talking about, and the fact that a lot of it, if we made it less overt that what we were doing, if we pulled it back a ways from the Captain Beefheart and the Sun Ra kind of craziest sounds, and made it more palatable commercially, it was like a subversion to get our information to the kids.
And it works brilliantly. But the double-edged sword of something like Whip It becoming such a huge hit is the record company says, now you do this more.
Well, yeah, certainly, because they finally thought they understood us and could point to something that made money. But this is all predictable. You don't look to those people for ideas. Believe me, we fictionalized our experience, in the little interstitial films I made, and the character of Rod Reuter. Everything he said was said to us, and I just remembered it and wrote it down. I didn't make up any of the lines.
Couldn't make up stuff that great.
Exactly. Like, I can forgive you guys for being artists, but I can't forgive you for being stupid. That was right in an A&R man's office at Warner Brothers.
I think some people may have dismissed you initially as a novelty, like this is going to last 6 months, like they did with the Beatles or something, like that same thing. They said the same thing about anything that was new. But how did you, and obviously you were both students of pop culture and music, and you probably understood all the potential pitfalls. If you have a career, it could end overnight because something new comes along a year later and you become, old hat. How did you address that? And it is similarly with Whip It becoming sort of a novelty single, you overcame a lot of these things to sustain what is now like a 40-plus year career, basically.
We just kept changing because we were an experimental art collective, so it didn't occur to us to just write another Whip It. It made no sense to us because we were moving on to some other ideas and other sounds, and they didn't understand that. We thought we could do something as good as Whip It that didn't sound exactly like Whip It. And okay, Whip It was maybe the whoopee cushion. You keep bringing up the novelty. But, whoopee cushions are still being made, so
It never gets old.
we're the novelty that, persisted.
In terms of Devo, obviously, you cut back on the number of recordings you're releasing regularly. You both are doing other work. What is the status of Devo now? Where do you see that going? Is there more stuff that you'd like to get out? Is there another recording that you'd like to do?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Devo could do a lot of things, too. And there was many more ideas and plans than what you saw. And it could still be done. It goes way beyond whether you record a record or not. We have an idea right now that Mark's really excited about. That's the audio version of what the CryptoPunks did visually. It's, what would you call it, Mark? It's progressive variations on a song where AI programs rearrange your song so that everybody that buys one gets a different version of your song. No two are alike.
It's a little bit like a mutating virus, but you think about that while you're writing it, and you think about that while you're putting together musical pieces and lyrics. You write your lyrics so that they can be moved around, and the same with the music. It's a whole another way to think about writing music as an art form. So.
And it's giving in to the technology and letting it take over, but you planned to let it take over. So it's on purpose. These mutations are on purpose. And it's kind of like going all the way back to Burroughs' cut-ups, except for now.
You've given us something to look forward to, something new. We expected nothing less of Devo. We have been talking to Jerry Casale and Mark Mothersbaugh.